Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Sean.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Huddle.
Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Now we're going to have our first real episode because a couple weeks ago, it was a holiday and
Right.
we showed up for the 6 or 7 that made it, right?
It was good. It was a little just intimate one-on-one.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So today we're talking about teams, right? And whether or not to start one. Heck, we might even get into whether or not you should join one or what you should be looking for. Who knows where this thing's going to go. But I know that I probably, next to asking questions about FHA or VA loans, that this is probably the most asked question I get is, how do I form a team? How do I pay my team members? Am I ready to start a team? Should I join a team? Team. Yeah.
You know, the one question we never get, or I almost never get asked, the most important question at that point, how should we set up the prenup?
Yeah, right.
When you partner a team, you need to have a really strong prenup that's thought through all the things that can happen if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, it's, a lot of times we suggest that. I could suggest it. Kathy Merrick could suggest it, but it's oftentimes that, at least in my experience, that when you start talking about that, that's an uncomfortable subject that kind of takes away from the euphoria and momentum of the moment. It's often too many times, people that are forming teams are people that like each other. So I like
Right.
you like me. Let's talk team. Let's talk business. And boy, I'll tell you, if there's one piece of advice any of you get from this meeting today, if there's anything that you take from this meeting today, make sure you take this, that if you're going to enter into a team agreement with anyone, you have a way to uncouple that in a way that allows you to maintain your book of business. It doesn't get wrapped up or tangled up in some sort of a legalese battle, because depending upon the size of your team and the team that you could develop, this can be a very, very troublesome and a very serious thing. So what say you? I mean, you have a lot of experience. Thrive was a team that, how many, at your largest point, you probably had 10, 12 or more agents? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we had over 24 agents.
Yeah, so 20 some agents, right?
And just because we brought it up, this wasn't really where to go in my head, but the things to think about when you're creating it, the prenup, like we'd say, the divorce agreement, it's not only what are we going to do with our various assets, but it's how are the past clients getting divvied up? How is the things that are in escrow getting divvied up? The clients you're working with now. It's the present moment that causes so much of the problem.
Right.
When two people say, even if it's friendly, look, we tried, this didn't work out. Well, how does all of that get split? Who gets to stay in touch with who?
Exactly.
You start competing with each other? That's ugly.
Right.
You got to think all that stuff through.
Right. Because even in the circumstances where it truly is mutual, there's an unwinding period that you have to go through, that it should be very procedural, right? It shouldn't be on a whim. You should follow a process, and the process should be the agreement you've come up with. So
right. When everybody's still in good terms.
Yeah.
So here's the question, Steve. I don't know if we want to just ask the group, or do we start out discussing whether or not to create one?
Yeah.
Or how to create one, and then go back to whether or not you should.
Yeah, maybe what we should talk about is should you, because I'll tell you, I have learned, if I've learned anything in my 33 plus years in this business, when it comes to this subject, all right, I'm going to tell you the thing I've learned the most, and that is that a high performing individual with the right support, meaning that they have a proper assistant, an admin assistant, and or a marketing associate that helps them, or a transaction coordinator. That individual, coupled with that type of support, oftentimes can outproduce teams that you see that could have as many as 5 to 10, or even sometimes even the 20 agent teams. And why is that? Well, we can talk about that, but just know that because you see other people doing this, or this team thing becomes I don't know when it started. I think it started sometime in the late 90s, where it really became a thing. Like, I don't know who started it. One of these speakers who said, you should be on a team. You should form a team. You should go big or go home, Holy crap. What load of crap that was. Now, I know teams do have a place. Absolutely, they do. And I'll say this: a high functioning team will outperform a high functioning individual. But that's not what I see most of the time. Most of the time, I see a group of people with no common vision, no common mission, no common perspective, hanging out together, just talking like they're a team. They haven't earned the right to call themselves a team. And that individual who's got the right support I talked about a minute ago is outperforming them left and right. They're making more money, right? Without the headaches of becoming a manager.
Right. So I think there's only a few reasons that you start a team. Well, let me take that back. I'm gonna admit my bias now. I don't think you should create teams. We'll have that conversation, but I've rarely seen it actually be a positive energy. I think people create teams for just a few reasons. One, the primary reason, hopefully, is that I have so much business. I got dollars are falling off the table.
Right.
I'm going to bring on an agent to help with what I can't handle. Another reason is what some call the SEAL team. The special forces. There's going to be 4 of us, or at most 5 of us, and we specialize. And together, our whole is greater than our parts. The other one is just a shared individual, like the Thrive team you mentioned.
Yeah.
That wasn't really much of a team the way we think of a team. That was 24 agents who shared a family atmosphere and loved their office, but nobody was working together. It wasn't a team in that sense. It was a team only in that they enjoyed each other's company.
Which is really common, isn't that, though, Sean? What you just described. When you see these teams, they really are kind of like little brokerages within a brokerage.
Right. Which makes me think, be careful with teams. And this has been going on for a while. I don't know how it lasts. What brokerages, like Compass, encourages this now, and I don't understand. What they're saying is, go ahead and create a team, keep most of the profit, but we'll still take all the liability. At some point, I think brokerages are going to have to pull back from that some. If you want to go out on your own, I did that. Go start your brokerage. Go get your broker's license. Go get your E&O. Have all the sleepless nights. I would never, ever do it again.
Right.
But to do it on the brokerage dime, I don't know how that, but that's not our question. But I wonder how long-lived it can be as brokerages tighten up,
Right. No,
the last reason, let me just give the last reason,
which
I think plays a much bigger part than we give credit. It's just ego. And there's nothing wrong with ego, but know why you're doing it. If you're doing it because they think it sounds good, I like having people on my team. I like saying I have a team because it comes with a whole lot of work.
Right.
That's the part no one talks about.
Well, oftentimes, I when I have people ask me, "Hey, I'm thinking about forming a team," the first question I ask is why.
Why? Right.
Why? Well, because I think I can, paired with this agent, we feel like we can go after the luxury market, or paired with this agent, I feel like I can, I'm leaving business on the table, right? I can't be in multiple places at once. And so then it's just me trying to understand, okay, what's the velocity of your personal business? Because if we're talking about a deal here or there's technology available to a lot of agents that can help free up time to get them out of the, that $15, $20 an hour work and get at and have more face time with the client. So I really try to understand, whether or not it's a growth mindset or it's one that is a scarcity mindset. A lot of times when I talk to the principal, I'm able to quickly determine that this is someone who's afraid to hire an assistant. They don't want to burden themselves with a salary. And so they'll get an unpaid, think of another agent. This person becomes an unpaid licensed assistant, and it's all but about 4 months before that unpaid licensed assistant figures out there are no leads, right? There is no rainmaking activity here that allows me, the principal's not giving up that business. Business where a buyer is ready, willing, and able. I'm just being handed, the scraps, and then off they go to find another team. And this principal starts this process again of looking for someone to support them. This creates a massive energy leak that actually, the dance that we're talking about here is, it's a 3 steps forward, 4 steps back kind of scenario, right? And so,
Let me ask you a question, because you made me think about this. is two people coming together, are we calling that a team?
Well, I think that's what most people think in terms. I don't. I think that's more a partnership, or again, it leans that way because a team really is having an assistant, like an admin assistant. A team could be that transaction coordinator, a buyer's agent, listing specialist. I mean, there's a lot. I mean,
Right.
teams that are
Because I see a lot of benefit to two people coming together. They can cover for each other.
Yes.
There's a lot of benefits. When I say team, I'm picturing multiple agents under a team lead.
Right.
Maybe we should clarify.
There you go. Yeah, good point of Yeah, it's a point of clarification that is well taken.
So,
yeah.
One of the things I found, and you were touching on it right now, and because I've talked to thousands and thousands of agents at this point, right?
Yeah.
And when I talk to someone running I'll call it even a successful team, one of my standard questions is, when all is said and done, what's your net profit? After you've paid for leads, paid for overhead, paid for all the things you're paying for the agents on your team. The answer is almost always within a couple points of 25%. Why weren't you just referring it out and taking no overhead, no risk, no time management problems, and refer it for? You and I talked about, if you have a ready, willing, and able to go client, a buyer, for instance, you probably get more than 25%.
Oh yeah, no, I mean the cost of that business has gone up dramatically. I mean, heck, there's probably a few agents on this call that would have no problem being handed a $2 million buyer for a 50% referral. By the way, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying.
I would. Yeah. When I was an agent, I get 50% and we're ready to open escrow.
But my point is, I'm not trying to put a number on it. I'm just saying that there be people that would run to that this minute. So you're exactly right. And you don't have to take on the brain damage. And then the argument is, well, then I lose control of that client or that book of business. Again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, not necessarily, but if your function should be the most important thing for any high performing agent team they have the same goals every day when the sun comes up. My goal this week or today, if possible, but for the week, is to bring in a saleable listing. Right? If I woke up every day with that one intention, everything I do is about bringing in a listing this week, my life would change forever for a lot of folks if they had 52 listings, 48 if they took a couple weeks off here or there, right? But I mean, your life would change forever because the cross-selling opportunities that are created from that intention is limitless. And there's a reason why every top agent that is running a successful team, the first thing they look for is an admin, and then they look for a buyer specialist, because the time on the job is about 2 to 1. You spend twice as much time working with a buyer as you typically do securing the listing and executing a marketing plan. So with that said, I want to pivot here in a minute, but I don't know if we're done with this, but I think we should talk about how do high functioning teams, how do they work? Like, what have you learned? What have I learned from the teams that do work?
So we're moving on to the pros. There's one more con that has to be taken into account.
Please.
Where someone looks to do this, and that's your production will 100% drop when you take on a team.
Yes.
It is a much greater time consumption than most people imagine running a team.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean don't do it, but it's another con that you have to take into account. I am moving into a management / coaching / here at Compass. You are the party that's supposed to be overseeing everything too. You're now the mini broker. If there's a problem with a contract, you're supposed to find it before it goes out.
You'll be a part of that issue, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, like, you don't get to. Well, Steve was working that. Sean doesn't get to say, "Hey, I handed it off to him. That's his problem." No. Sean's the team principal. It's whatever I do, the responsibility is his. I am his responsibility.
Right.
As well as the brokerage being responsible for the two. So, yeah, it's a lot of time.
So, good question. Now that you've listened to this and said, yeah, I can still see the benefit to me of a team. How would you go about it? If in an ideal world, Steve, how would you set up your team?
I would start with an administrative assistant, because not some of the time, not part of the time, every single time I've seen a team that functions at a high level, they secure that position first. A very talented admin can do the job of about 3 people, and when you find talent, that is. And you know you found talent, because I mean your life will literally change forever when a good admin person walks into your life. They will never, I mean, of course the sounds they'll never cost you anything. They'll only make you money. Now, a scarcity mindset says, what are you talking about? I have to pay them a salary. I've got to find a way to compensate them, either through my production or what have you. But trust me, if you trust me a little, trust me a lot when I tell you that this person, this role is so important that when you have somebody that you could call and say, Sean, and just read out an address, 123 Happy Hollow Street. That's it. And when I walk into the office or I run past that person, they hand me a folder, and everything that I need for that listing appointment is locked and loaded. You have no idea how your production can go up. The stress of this business can just almost melt away when you have someone that is that good. So you want to start there. At least that's what I've seen. Now I'd say 80% of the time that's not what I see. I see.
No, it's agents.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, you're not talking about a TC. Everyone should have a TC as a given. That's not even a question.
No, I'm not talking about a TC.
You're talking about an admin.
I'm talking about someone that comes in and organizes your life in such a way is that. I'm going to tell you just a quick story. Jamie Kramer is a guy I worked with back in Michigan. He was one of my mentors when I first got started. I remember when he hired his first admin, said, this guy did $5 million worth of sales his first year in real estate. So he was my role model, right? He hired this gal. Her name was Tracy Worthington. I remember it like it was yesterday. I don't remember a lot of things anymore, Sean, but I remember this, right? Like, because I remember her name because I remember the story that came with her. She was a single mom who had retired from Ford Motor Company, working as an EA, an executive assistant, but needed to go back home to raise her child. And after a divorce, she stayed at home and was raising her children. She wanted to get back into the workforce, but she only wanted to work for about 20 hours. Jamie knew he needed an assistant, but she was working 20 hours. She would only work 20 hours, and she was commanding a 40-hour salary. And he's like, I don't know how to. I remember the conversations he was having with our broker at the time, because I was overhearing part of it. He finally was convinced to go after her because our broker knew the kind of talent that this person was. And any of you who've ever been around anyone who's an executive assistant knows that you march to their drumbeat, they don't march to yours. And he hired her. His business in 1 year went to $15 million, her working 20 hours a week. Now, I can tell you, we don't have enough time to get into everything she was doing for him in those early stages. She essentially stepped into his life and turned his operation into a business that he could actually sell. Like she took Jamie Kramer's business and he could franchise that thing. That's how organized she made his life. And boom, he was off and running. Because his best gift to this whole endeavor was the gift for Gab, to get in front of sellers and secure listings, not this other stuff. She changed his life forever, and she never, ever was a hard expense for him. She paid for herself 4 times over the first year he hired her.
The rule of thumb that we normally have is your income should double when you hire an admin.
Yes.
There's absolutely nothing about it that's a cost to you. Now, that's given that you're doing it the right way, right?
Right.
Spending a lot of time on this first part of a team, an admin, your first admin ideally will eventually become your office manager.
Right.
So there's certain rules of thumb. Like you should interview a minimum of 25 people. Most of us do one. It's our friend's kid, or it's somebody we know. Or you're talking about someone who's going to be helping you run a multi-million dollar business. We have someone in common, you and I, Steve, Gary Keller, who's written a lot about hiring. And 2 things always stood out to me. One was he said, if you find talent, hire it. I don't care if you have a role or not yet. Hire it and figure out the role, because talent's hard to find.
That's right.
His other was, you need to interview people until you're sitting there at the desk and the hair stands up on your arm and you start to hear angels sing in the background.
Right.
That's how you know you found the right person. So it's a big time commitment to find this person. You need to do disc analysis, and we can anybody wants to can get with either one of us. We can show you a whole list of things that you do to help you find them. But it's hugely important.
One of the things I'll never forget is Gary Keller saying, when you hire talent, your life will change forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Robert Refkin. I think about any great entrepreneur who has brought the right talent into their lives. This is their path to success. No one succeeds alone.
Right.
The other thing,
100%.
the other thing I've noticed, so we'll just kind of pivot real quick, so I know we're running short on time. I really want to kind of bang a few thoughts in my head out here. Is one of the things that I see, Sean, when I'm evaluating someone whose team isn't working right, like they're losing folks, and they don't understand why, and they thought it would be a great fit, and then I'll ask them, tell me about. I'm going to use John Rice because I say, tell me about John. So John's on your team, right? And you're complaining that you just lost John and you don't understand why. I ask you this, Sean, tell me about what John's goals were. What do you mean? Well, tell me, why was he showing up? What mattered to John? Did John understand your goals? What kind of a relationship did you form from the onset so that when you brought John into your life, you understood exactly what his mission, what his values, what his belief was, such as his manager. You made that a priority to make sure that got unloaded, that blossomed and opened up for John, so that you could leverage then this vehicle that you're building to make sure. If you understand how important it is for why John's doing what he's doing, you will free yourself from a lot of what if stuff.
That's how people stay.
That's how
right?
people stay. Yeah,
you have to have a vision so big that someone can come in and try to live out their vision inside of yours.
That's right.
So if you don't know what that is and it's not big enough yet, how are you going to keep good talent?
Well,
and that's part of the problem. We're talking about bringing on talent, which is how I would do a team versus agents. Here's the general rule of thumb, again, a con of a team. There's only two kinds of agents that will join your team. Ones that are really good, and as soon as they realize it, they will leave your team and go on their own. And ones that are really not good, and they'll stick around forever. You lose both ways.
Well, I will tell you, what is today? Today's the 23rd. There is still time. If you're on a team right now or you're a principal, you have plenty of time before the end of the week to have a meeting with your team and make this a subject for a meeting, like a priority for you. And if you're a team member, it is never, ever a bad thing to manage up. Because we got to remember, most people don't know how to do this. There's no class for how to run an effective team or how to build a team in real estate. So if you don't know what matters to your principal, or if you feel they don't understand what your goals are, be brave enough to have that conversation. And because I will tell you, it will be the basis by which every good decision the team makes going forward will be based upon. Because now it's about us fulfilling. I want to support you, Sean. What's the best way for me to support you? And if I understand that, and you understand how to support me, that's this whole blocking and tackling the real estate exercise is the easy stuff. It really is. Now you might not want to do some of that work, right? Some people don't want to, but that's the easy part.
If you have that conversation, you may find out that this is not the right team.
That's right.
And that's okay. There shouldn't be ego in this.
That's right.
I mean, you and I have both coached. Sometimes you have an agent and you realize, I'm not the right coach for you. I'm not being negated. That's
right. Yeah.
I need to want the best for you. And that may be somebody else. That may be a different team.
That's right.
Before we go, Gerald asked a question we hear a lot. What's the typical pay structure for an admin? Salary, hourly, combo, commission share?
Well, what my experience for this admin person is, it is a salaried position, and it could range anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 or more. So it just depends on the role the person is going to play, and how big the business opportunity is. If you're running a business that is netting, where the business is netting north of $2.5 million in GCI, it's a heavy workload. That person is going to get compensated the equivalent of what a manager for a real estate office is going to earn.
Right, because that's what they're doing.
Right, exactly.
Now, having said that, though, I would put out this general thought. You're in a business of commission. So the more you can minimize overhead, the better.
Right.
What a lot of times with an admin, let's say we want to target $100,000. You need to be making $100,000 with my team, but I might pay you a salary of $50 and have a bonus structure set up based on what I'm already doing.
Right.
It's not, I've never done this before, but trust me, we'll get there. You're not going to get the talent you want. It's got to be based on the reality of what you've done in the past.
That's
but
right.
a lot of it is then also on that bonus, so that as the market goes up and down, you're not getting squashed by a huge overhead.
Right. And that structure, by the way, that you just outlined, I've also learned that actually attracts talent. Because if you create a big opportunity for talent, like that is incentive driven, where they can, in effect, manage part of that process, like they can lean into you. Hey, we're not where we need to be. I'm not going to make what I need to earn.
They're going to help hold you accountable.
Yeah, there is something really dramatic that happens when you take on the responsibility of someone. How that in itself can be a very focusing, clarifying moment in your life. I mean, like you get real clear, real fast.
You have to be organized, and you have to know what's going on in your week so that you can give them their responsibilities.
That's right. That's right.
So we're going to run out of time. I want to throw a couple out real quick, and then you change or add to it if you disagree.
Sure.
The admin would be number one without question. I would then look at probably virtual marketing person, start handling a lot of my posts and all that kind of follow-up. This is not including lead gen. You might have an ISA if you're based on cold calling. This is the team that supports you. I would do VA marketing. Then the next thing would be a listing coordinator. Now you've gotten big enough that I don't want to handle all the signs and the appraisals and the inspections. And then you're probably at that point going to move that original admin up to office manager and hire another admin. This would be the staff growth that I would see in a team with one simple objective. If all of my time could be spent in front of people, that is the most efficient, most optimized team possible. If I could let go of everything else and just make sure I'm heading to listing appointments or closings, you're going to have an unbelievable run in business.
That's thinking big, and that's why there are people that get big results, and it's hard.
Would you change that or add?
I think that if I had talent at the admin, the only thing you might be able to get away with for a bit of time, I don't disagree. I think that is it. But for a bit of time, you could probably maintain that admin person for a minute and get a buyer's agent in, so you can start delegating, just freeing yourself up even more time. And then at some point, the business is generating the revenue it needs to be able to go out and make that hire. So I think that that's it. That's the only thing I would say is that Tracy Worthington, I remember this person. I remember her like it was yesterday. we're talking 1991. She was a rock star. I mean, she was an absolute rock star, transformed this man's life. And she was all the better for it. And so was Jamie. So yeah, I think if you had that person, you could probably keep her in position a little bit longer, because talent can do the work of 3 to 4 people.
Right.
That's not that that's not to sound like you overwork somebody. It simply means that they have the capacity, a bandwidth, that they're talent that way.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing, just a great tool to have, maybe you get with other agents and share it, have access to a runner. 2 hours a day, someone who runs signs, runs paperwork, runs out and unlocks doors, brings pre-listing packages to people's businesses. Oh my God, does that make a difference before you go to a listing appointment? Having access to a runner, you'll be amazed how many things you can give them to do that will improve your business.
Right. I think it's important to note, Sean, that we as human beings, everyone on this call, we've all in some way mastered this concept of leverage. Like I don't often cook every meal I eat, right? I'm not formulating the gas that gets into my car. I don't make the tires that I buy that go, I don't put them on my vehicle. I mean, someone does that for me. I mean, I don't cut my grass because I've got someone that my time's more valuable and I can find someone to do that. Every day I am leveraging things in my life or people and services in my life to free me up so that I can have a life worth living. This is no different. This is just taking it to a level inside of your business and saying, if it's possible for me, because I'm telling you, it's that scarcity mindset that I've even lived through myself. It's not that doing, the 25 million in sales is hard. It's actually, the hard part's actually believing it. you know, because when you put the
Funny
right
story.
people, no, it is so true. And I know that sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, it's not. You know,
Let's.
every day
Nicole has her hand
I
up
meet
too.
people that are successful, and I go, "What? I just, you know, why didn't I, you know, think of, you know,
It's always
every day,
mindset.
yeah,